1000 LB Sisters Chris Combs shocks with massive weight transformation. Chris Combs had always been the steady one. In a family known for emotional highs and lows, viral moments, and deeply personal struggles broadcast to millions, Chris stood out, not because he was perfect, but because he was dependable. He was the older brother who cracked jokes when things got tense, who stepped in when things fell apart, and who carried more weight than anyone realized, not just physically, but emotionally. But one day, something shifted. It wasn't a dramatic moment. There was no shouting, no breaking point caught on camera. It was quieter than that. A glance in the mirror. A pause after climbing a short flight of stairs. The realization that even laughter left him breathless. Chris didn't say anything at first. He just decided. It started early one morning. Chris sat at his kitchen table, a cup of coffee cooling in his hands. The house was quiet. No cameras, no family, no distractions. Just him and his thoughts. He had always told himself he was doing okay. Not as bad as before, not as bad as others. But that morning, the truth felt impossible to ignore. He wasn't okay. He was tired, deeply tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. He thought about the future, about growing older, about whether he'd be able to keep up with life, with family, with the moments that mattered most. And then he said it out loud, softly, as if testing the words, "I gotta change." That was it. No dramatic music, no announcement, just a decision that would quietly transform everything. Chris had tried before. Diets, promises, short bursts of motivation that faded when life got hard, as it always does. But this time felt different. This time, he wasn't chasing a number on a scale. He was chasing something deeper. Control. Not over everything, but over himself. He started small. Instead of completely overhauling his diet overnight, he made one change, smaller portions. Then another, cutting out late-night eating. Then another, choosing water over sugary drinks. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't exciting, but it was consistent. And consistency, Chris would later realize, was more powerful than motivation ever could be. The silent struggle. What people didn't see, what the cameras couldn't fully capture, was how hard it was in those early days. The cravings, the habits, the comfort food that had always been there waiting. Food had never just been food. It was celebration. It was stress relief. It was routine. Breaking away from that felt like losing a part of himself. There were nights he stood in front of the fridge, hand on the handle, arguing with himself. Just one more bite? You've already done good today. You can start again tomorrow. But something inside him pushed back. No, not this time. And slowly, those small victories started to add up. At first, exercise felt impossible. Chris wasn't trying to run marathons. He wasn't chasing extreme workouts. He started with walking, short distances, slow pace, frequent breaks. Some days, even that felt like too much. But he showed up anyway. Day after day, step after step. What started as a struggle became a routine. What felt impossible became manageable. And eventually, something unexpected happened. He started to enjoy it. Not every second, but enough to keep going. The first noticeable change wasn't on the scale. It was in how he felt. He had more energy. He could move more easily. Simple tasks didn't feel like exhausting challenges anymore. Then came the physical changes. Clothes fitting differently. A little more definition in his face. A little less strain in his posture. People started noticing. You look different. Have you lost weight? What are you doing? Chris would shrug it off. Just trying to do better. But inside, he knew. This wasn't just weight loss. This was transformation. Not every day was a success. There were setbacks. Days when he slipped back into old habits. Days when the scale didn't move. Or worse, went up. Those moments hit hard. It would have been easy to quit. To tell himself it wasn't working. To go back to what was familiar. But Chris had learned something important. Progress isn't linear. One bad day didn't erase the good ones. One mistake didn't undo everything. So instead of giving up, he adjusted. He kept going. The biggest change wasn't physical, it was mental. Chris stopped seeing his journey as a temporary effort and started seeing it as a lifestyle. This wasn't about reaching a finish line, it was about building a life he could sustain. He became more mindful, more aware of his choices, more intentional with his time and energy. And with that shift came something powerful: confidence. Not the loud, showy kind, but a quiet belief that he could do hard things and keep doing them. When his family started to see the transformation, the reactions were immediate: shock, pride, a little disbelief. Chris had always been strong, but now there was something different about him, something lighter, not just physically, but emotionally. He wasn't just changing his body, he was changing the energy around him. His progress became inspiration, not in a preachy or overwhelming way, but in a real, relatable way. If Chris could do it, maybe others could too. There came a moment when everything clicked. It wasn't tied to a specific weight or milestone, it was a feeling. Chris realized he wasn't struggling to keep up anymore, he was leading. He wasn't just trying to change. He had changed. And for the first time in a long time, he felt in control of his life. The transformation wasn't just visible, it was undeniable. Chris moved differently, spoke differently, carried himself differently. He had become a new version of himself, not by becoming someone else, but by becoming more of who he was meant to be. Stronger, healthier, more present. What surprised Chris the most wasn't the physical changes. It was the emotional ones. He felt lighter, not just in body, but in mind. Less burdened, less stuck, more open to life. Moments that used to pass by unnoticed now felt meaningful. Laughter came easier. Hope felt closer. And for someone who had spent so long just getting by, that change meant everything. Chris's journey wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about quick results or dramatic transformations overnight. It was about persistence, about showing up, even when it was hard, about choosing better. Not all at once, but little by little. His story became a reminder that change doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes the quiet decisions are the ones that matter most. Chris knows the journey isn't over. It never really is. There will always be challenges, always be moments of doubt. But now he faces them differently, with experience, with resilience, with the knowledge that he's already come so far, and that he's capable of going even further. Chris Combs didn't just lose weight. He gained something far more important: control, confidence, a sense of purpose. His transformation wasn't just physical, it was personal. A journey that started with a quiet decision at a kitchen table and turned into something extraordinary. Thank you for watching. Write what you think about it. Subscribe to the channel.